Okay, JP's Ponderings, and I've been pondering about this for a while, and it's censorship. And now, just recently, Elon Musk has come up with a bit of a swipe at pretty much everyone. Like, I don't know if that guy has a team or how the hell he does it, but his memes are pretty impressive. But anyway, when you talk about censorship, you really have to think about who is the person that's been censored. Now, that is one part of the story, but the other part of the story is who actually makes the decision on what you can view. Now, when I look through things, I totally understand if I am on the free speech platform, which is becoming X, which is the whole reason why Elon Musk bought that. There is a whole lot of backstory why he may have bought that, because he wasn't being, in the early days before he took over, he was sent messages to Twitter about he didn't like that someone was tracking his jet. There was this guy that was tracking all Elon's jet movements, and Elon wanted that guy taken down. The guys at Twitter literally ignored all of that. Eventually, Elon started buying big chunks of shares in Twitter. Now, quite interesting, because I think he was motivated to buy Twitter just to shut this person down, which is pretty crazy. I'm sure he wouldn't have done that, but maybe he did. Now the guy that tracks Elon still tracks his jets, but it's 24 hours behind. Now, and that's what Elon was saying. He didn't want people to know that he was in a jet at that particular time. He always was happy to let people know afterwards, but not at the time. Now, that was a real big roundabout of where we're getting to censorship, but we get on to X. Now, Elon's trying to sell this as the platform of choice, the platform that doesn't censor, the platform of free speech. And you could say every other sort of speech, hate speech and everything is all involved with that. But just recently, the joust, not really a joust, a couple of memes by it looks like, which is how he motivates himself, with the Australian Prime Minister Albanese. Now, this was a swipe saying, it was about a knife attack to a priest, and the Australian Prime Minister saying you've got to take that down. Now, I sit and I watch things like that, and I believe you have to be very aware when you are watching anything on social media that you could see anything at any time. Now, I'm sitting there going far out. Some of the fighting scenes that I see, if I watch before I go to bed, it keeps me up, and because I've got the adrenaline pumping. I've stopped watching UFC before going to bed because of this. I don't scroll before I go to bed. So I've got at least a good couple of hours when I actually go to bed when I don't do anything that looks like scrolling, because you never know what you're going to see in that. And with censorship, who's choosing what you see? Now, is anyone actually thinking about, do you want to go down this tract where China, pretty much the government, censors every single thing that population sees? So why would we want to start to let people censorship? That's what I think. So if we're in a situation where the Prime Minister's saying we need to have social awareness about showing these videos because he can't show them, well, it did happen. There was footage of it. And many people have already seen it. And if you want to see it, you can search it on other platforms to be able to see it. So whose responsibility is it? And that's the question. Whose responsibility is it? Do we let government make this decision? Should these social networks be socially responsible about things that we see? Now, I personally don't believe they should be. I think if things happen, you need to let it ride. So for me, where does the censorship start? Do things have to be censored? And child bestiality, triple X scenes, are these things that need to be censored for everyone to see? Because technically, you don't know who's looking at that. What is it that actually needs to be censored? I think we can all agree that no one wants to see any of those things that I've just mentioned. But who makes that decision? I think it's, here we are sitting there going to a social media platform to say to them, hey guys, can you just go through and have a person censoring the millions of hours of footage that they have floating through? I mean, AI must be picking up some of it, humans picking up some of it. You can't possibly expect them to pick up everything. And how could we trust social media platforms whose only intention is to make sure we stay on their platform longer? Now, it's no different than a news outlet. All they want from us is they want the exclusive. Like if Channel 9, 7, 10, they all want that exclusive because that gives them content that no one else has. I see it as exactly the same online. All these platforms, all they want you to do is be on that platform longer. And I don't think we can be sitting there trusting them to come up with the censorship model. Do I trust the Chinese government? Do I trust the Australian government to be coming up with censorship, with someone saying, no, that needs to be censored? I think this is a huge topic that is extremely hard to get to the bottom of what should be censored and what shouldn't be censored. Because I'm a believer if it's happened and there's footage, then it should be out there. So, you know, there are things that clearly I think every person can sit here and say, we really don't want to see that. The fact that we have Bondi recently, 6 people losing their lives because they were stabbed because someone had, let's just say, a mental episode. And then we go to a week later and a priest gets stabbed, but that's terror. So because it's terror, we throw terror onto that. That's the only way that we can try and get that taken away, or try and make sure that's censored over something else. Now, 2 examples, same thing happened to a degree. And one, they whack terror in it. It's just like in the old days, we used to throw COVID in front of everything, and all of a sudden that means you couldn't talk about it. And now we do the same thing. Well, that's a terror act. That needs to be censored. I come back to terror acts. Why do they have to be censored? Because if that's actually going on and then no one hears about it, is it really going on? Of course it is. But we're not hearing about it in the mainstream media. But the mainstream media has still talked about that, and they haven't showed the footage, but they've talked about the stabbing of the priest. So you got 2 examples there where 6 people lose their life, madman stabbing in Bondi, and then you've got a stabbing of a priest, and that's a terror, so we can't talk about it. So for me, I think the censorship debate has a very long way to go. I'm talking about this in regards to what platforms they're coming on and how we view it, but there's no doubt that what we see here in Australia is very different than what's going on in Palestine and Israel. And like Elon says, it'd be like, why should we be listening to a non-elected e-safety person? Shouldn't this be more of a global fix? Now, I don't want to be a conspiracist here at all, but let's look at all the global platforms out there. They're all pretty corrupt. Maybe. That's just my guess on it. But why should we be listening to one person here? I mean, there's no doubt Australia's standards of what we think is graphic would be totally different to a war-torn country. Who and what is that person that can do that? How does that look on a global platform? Because you imagine Australia would be totally different to America, totally different to Africa, totally different to Iceland. So where does that all sit? I don't actually know the answer to where that all sits. And Elon's basically saying, I'm not going to listen to a non-elected government worker, hence why the directions come to the PM of Australia, because he's had to then get onto the bandwagon to say that. You know, PM's getting involved with things like this, I think is very interesting. If we want to talk about censorship, Twitter took Trump off their Twitter platform because they were saying it was hate speech. Now, hate speech, terrorism, you know, the trend here is let's just label them what we can so we can then make sure they're censored. I think anyone should be able to have a platform and anyone should be able to say what they want. I don't want this to be totally bogged down about the particular stabbings that have recently occurred, but I do want it to clarify that Elon's actually, the Australian government said you've got to take this off. So Elon then took it off just Australia only. Obviously, this doesn't cover the people that have VPNs and things like that, which is probably very minimal in the scheme of things. But he has got it on the rest of the X platform across the world. Now, how can we be censoring the stuff that's censorable here in Australia? Yeah, we probably don't see much coming out of China, but you know, different from what comes out of America to Gaza to, you know, they're all, if everyone's censoring their own little bit, then you're never really getting the whole story. And the part about having whatever the story, whether it's good or bad on the platform is, it's really about how do you get a balanced conversation about it, or how do you get a balanced opinion? And if you really want to do your research, you can then look into that and then find out all the material that you want from what is there. Now, we got to understand, people don't understand. So much is already been censored before we see it anyway. And a lot of that comes down to whatever narrative the mainstream media companies want you to see. Hence why people do look elsewhere. Hence why it is so important for us to make sure we better be very careful about the way we tread when we talk about censorship and what information is actually being censored. Because it's a very slippery slope for how we handle censorship, and it is something that definitely needs to be looked into. So there you have it. Small small window into why I think censorship really needs to be looked at, and how and who are the bodies that are going to be able to do this. I think I don't think you can trust the people producing the media. I don't think you can trust the social media platforms. And I think if someone wants to put something out there and they do, then that's totally up to them. Do I agree with everything I see? Absolutely not. But I don't choose to engage in it. One thing I do agree with, I've noticed on a few of the Instagram things that I see, it comes up with a graphic content. Do you want to view or not? Now, I think that's a great idea. I think it's a bit of a balance of, okay, we understand that this footage is graphic in nature and it gives the person the ability to just scroll straight past or to actually watch it if they really wanted to. I think that is very good. And for me, I think that's a big step forward, having content like that, having things in place which give you the ability to choose if you actually want to see that. Naturally, the algorithm would gravitate to that. So if you did like looking at whatever that was, you would probably get sent more and more of that. There you go. Thanks for listening. Just some ponderings. If you've got any comments down below, I'd love to comment on them. I'd love to hear other people's opinions on it. And let's just see what I'll be pondering next.